of a video I've done before, but if you've seen that video, you know it was straight up called a really bad Game of Thrones character tier list. For good reason. It was really bad. Not that my opinions were bad per se, but the quality of it was bad. So this is a somewhat improved quality of that same video. So this is the tier list. Now, a few disclaimers. As much as I want to be, I guess, a purist and count Season 8, I just can't. Because there are only 2 characters that were alive in Season 8 for part of it that weren't ruined by their shitty writing. And there are S tier characters that I couldn't put in S tier because of Season 8. So I'll talk about the characters that weren't ruined in Season 8, but aside from that, I pretty much won't be taking Season 8 into account because I don't think it's fair to the characters because they didn't write this shit. So putting Season 8 out of it, this is the tier list. So starting off good, Robert Baratheon, good old Bobby B. Now, like many of these one-season characters, he doesn't have a bad scene at all. The actor plays him phenomenally. He's well written, and he doesn't have a scene where you don't just watch in awe or laugh, you know, or get your heart torn. He doesn't have a bad scene. However, because you think not having a bad scene would be God tier, but there's a character, it's Ned, who's, you know, he's part of the Season 1 gang, you know. So I compare the two a lot. And Ned, I feel, is God tier, and I'll get to him when I get to him. But I'll explain more. But Robert Baratheon, he's great. He's a great character. But when I get to Ned, I'll explain why I think he is better than Robert Baratheon, which means, you know, he's got to go on great. Aside from that, though, he's a fucking phenomenal character. Yeah. So, Sansa Stark. Yeah, I'm also going to put her in great as well. If I'm being honest, Sansa in the early seasons, you know, seasons like probably 1 through about midway of 4, I hated her. Not only was she just a pain to watch, even though it made sense in the long run, it still wasn't as entertaining to watch as some of the other characters, but even then, in Season 1, a little bit of 2, but mainly 1, she was actually a bad actor. There were a lot of kid actors on this show. Some were worse than her, but others were a lot better than her as, like, from an acting ability. However, as the seasons progressed, she got more and more better. And I think she's actually probably at her strongest in Seasons 7 and 8. Which is weird because a lot of characters falter. She actually rises, which is uncommon for a lot of characters, but yeah. So half of her kind of sucks, but half of her is great, so I'm gonna just go with my gut and say great. Arya Stark. I'm just gonna go ahead and she's my favorite character in the show. I have no problem disclosing that. I have a tattoo for her. I have her autographed picture. She's my favorite character in any television show. But even I can say that her writing fell off a little bit in 5 and 6, when she went to the House of Black and White. I feel like that whole plot line wasn't given enough thought as it was in the books. But even then, her as a character during those scenes never faltered. And even though she rarely ever used any of the abilities she had, that was still very important character growth for her. And, you know, yeah, she's just thoroughly entertaining. Amazing. So, yeah. Bran. Nope. He doesn't even listen. Bran is the worst character in the show. There are characters who aren't good, but they aren't in it that much. They're in maybe one episode, few episodes at tops. And even when they're in those episodes, they're not really that important. This fucking kid is important. That's why he sucks so much. His story's not interesting. Okay, he's a whiny bitch, then he turns into a computer, and then he becomes king. Which there's a season 8 is not a good season. But if they at least changed who became king, I'd be okay, you know? But no, they had to make fucking Bran king. He wasn't even in season 5 because they knew he was a pointless, stupid character. And then they brought him back for some reason. I hate this fucking character so much. Rickon, yeah, he's trash too. This is like I was saying with Bran. There's a lot of characters that are in here that are bad, but they're not even in it that much. Rickon's a perfect example of that. You know, what does he do? What does he do besides get killed? Nothing. Joffrey. Now, I don't think you could find anybody that would say that Joffrey is not one of the best villains in TV history. You know, I'm going to put him in gray. Reason I'm not going to put him in S tier is, for me, the way I like my villains aren't like him, I guess. When I get to some of the villains, because a couple of villains are S tier, I'll explain why I prefer that kind of villainy over Joffrey's. Joffrey's was more in-your-face villainy. And his character, I don't know, it just... I love him as a villain, but they did better, which is more of a testament to the show more than a detriment to the character, because the character on itself is really good. But I think they did better. Still, though, he's a great villain, one of the best. Jorah. Actually, it's ironic these two are together, because these are the only two characters, Jorah and Theon, that weren't ruined in season 8. I think Jorah got like the best out of season 8. I couldn't imagine a better death scene for Jorah. If they didn't do that, I'd really be angry with him, because that's the death that Jorah deserved, dying by his queen. And even before that, he's one of the most interesting characters out there. He's, struggling with this secret he has from Dany, wanting to return home, but then ultimately finding she's worth fighting for, until season 8 ruins her. But he's such a morally complex character. He's the reason why Dany's storyline is watchable. When I get to her, I'll get to her, but I'm not the biggest fan of Dany. And he was the one reason I kept watching it. Okay, he's not the only reason, but he's certainly made it a lot better. And he's got a fucking amazing voice, Ian Glenn. Theon. Theon. Theon's a hard one to place. He's definitely at least a great character. I'm struggling with if he deserves God tier. Because, I mean, aside from maybe Jaime, there hasn't been a character who had as much change throughout the whole series. I'm going to put him in grades. It just doesn't feel right to me to put him in God tier, but he's still an amazing character with an amazing journey throughout the entire show. And in terms of material he had to act out, he had one of the most challenging parts in the show. And Alfie Allen pulled it fucking off. So, good on him. Great character. Littlefinger. This is my boy right here. He's Nestor. Sure, they kind of ruined him in season 7, but yeah, and I guess sort of season 5. But before that, he was the best player in the game. You know, there wouldn't be a series without the things that he did. And he was just so... He was what Game of Thrones was. Early on, the political scheming. That's what he was, and that's why the earlier seasons were so good, is because of his way of manipulating the game. So yeah, great character. Hound, that's another S tier. Another character you wouldn't think would have lots of growth, but he's got a heart of gold, really. Accompanied that when him and Arya are together, I think that's among the more entertaining storylines in the entire show. And just him as a character is always entertaining. No matter really what he's doing, you're usually always going to be entertained with whatever it is he's doing. So yeah, Hound, great character. Sam. This guy should have died a long time ago. I get it, you need some kind of comic relief. And in the earlier seasons, he was good. But he kept doing the same thing. He's fat. He's not a good fighter. How the fuck is he still alive? I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of Sam. I think his character gets boring after a while. Yeah, and any change he had, it happened early, and he just stayed static for the rest of his runtime. Now, Tyrion. Seasons 1 through 4 Tyrion, you'd have a hard time finding anybody who doesn't think he's God tier. He's probably the best character in seasons 1 through 4. However, after he kills his dad and leaves King's Landing, he doesn't do much. The reason people love Tyrion was because he was among the smartest characters in the show. And after he left, for some reason I'll never know, they just dumbed him down. And just had him making jokes and poor decisions. And he wasn't interesting anymore. So, I mean, I'll give him great for being probably the best character in the earlier seasons, but post King's Landing Tyrion, he's not the same character. Renly? I mean, he's pretty good. I'll say that. I don't know why he thought he had a chance of being king. But mean, he honestly didn't do much in the grand scheme of things, but for what he did do, he was entertaining, and would have been interesting to see what would happen if him and Rob actually aligned, but of course we never got there. But I mean, all in all, he's pretty good. Now Ross, not good. I mean, to her credit, I like that they actually tried doing something with her character. I mean, before she was just a whore, but then they made her a spy for Varys, which was a really interesting thing, and actually bumped her character up a little bit, and actually made her more interesting than I guess she had any right being. But still, it's such a minor character with not that much to do. But I still commend them for trying to do something with her. Jorah Mormont. He's really good. He's really good. Great father figure to Jon. And he made the Night's Watch feel like a home. Like, it's weird, but like, I don't know, he just brought such comfort in the, I guess, stability and control to the Night's Watch. And once he died, you know, they obviously plunged into chaos. Yeah, he's a really good character. Gendry, I mean, I'd say same thing. I mean, I don't know why they didn't think of anything for him to do for like four or 5 seasons, aside from him rowing. But you know, he came back, and he was actually a big part of the story. If you're wondering, he's the one who I think probably should have been king by the end of it. I think that would have made a lot more sense for the story. I just wish they gave the poor guy something to do besides rowing for a few seasons. Talisa. No, Lysa. Nice. No, Lysa. No. No, that's not where you go. I'm gonna go not good. Her as a character isn't bad. I mean, she has a part and she plays it well. But I still hate her. So Robin's actual trash. I don't have much to say about Robin. He sucks. Bran, on the other hand, Bran's god tier. There are characters you just, when they're on screen, you stop and listen, and you pay attention. Bran's one of them. I mean, so many of his scenes are just so well written, and just entertaining. I don't have much. It's just entertaining. Go figure. Pycelle. I would put Pycelle in really good if they didn't delete a certain scene in season 3 that gave so much depth to his character. They deleted it, so now he's pretty good. The scene I'm talking about is when Tywin's fishing, and Pycelle comes up to him and he requests a seat back on the small council, and he's doing his stuttery old man thing, and Tywin sees right through it. And as soon as Tywin sees right through it, Pycelle stops, and he readjusts himself, and he's talking like a normal guy, and you realize it's all an act. His whole, I guess, character is an act. He thought this was just some, oblivious, stupid old guy. But no, he's playing his own game. And I don't know why they deleted it. Out of all the scenes, that added so much depth to his character. But they deleted it. So, that was pretty good. Varys. I'm gonna put him in really good. I think, you know, him and Littlefinger, I think obviously are probably the two best players in the game. But I think the way he plays the game is better handled in the books. Because in the show, he seems to be, you know, jumping from one plot to another, and you don't really see what his overarching goal is. He always says he just wants, you know, a good ruler. But, I don't know, I think in the books, you know, him sort of being a Targaryen loyalist, and then obviously with young Griff, which they, for some reason, kept out of the show, I think is better handled in the books than it is in the show. And like Tyrion, when he leaves King's Landing, his character just suffers so much because he can't do what he was good at. And I think Littlefinger, when he leaves King's Landing, though still isn't as good as when he's in King's Landing, isn't as bad than what Varys, I guess, evolved into. Loras, I mean, same thing, kind of like Renly. He doesn't have much to do. He's not that important. But for the material he's given, he doesn't do a bad job. So he's pretty good. Cersei. This is what I was saying. I was not really counting Season 8 into it because Season 8 Cersei isn't a character. Season 8 Cersei is a poster of a woman glaring out a window with a glass of wine. That is what Cersei is in Season 8. Prior to Season 8, Cersei is the villain of the entire show. She's the main villain. And she plays it perfectly. There are two kinds of villainy I really like in a show. I'll get to the other one that's S tier in a minute. But she's one of the kinds of villainy I like, the subtle villainy, the one who works in the shadows but is also right on the forefront. I don't know, she played the role of villain perfectly. And she even has a lot of sympathetic moments, which just adds a lot more complexity to her character. So, she's S tier, man. Shae. I would put her in actual trash, but the writing saved her character. I think she's a lot better in the show than she is in the books. The reason I want to put her in actual trash is because I think out of all the actors in the show, the ones that are, you know, actually have lines and stuff, I think she's one of the only bad actors in the show, which I don't really like saying, but in a show with so many good actors, you can tell when somebody's not doing as good a job as them, and you can tell with her. But I mean, the writing for her isn't bad at all, so I think that's what bumps her up a little bit. Benjen, he just didn't have anything to do, really. You know, he was in season 1, and he goes away for a few seasons, comes back, hangs out with Bran, goes away for a few seasons, comes back, saves Jon, dies. That's his character. Wish they could have done more with him, but they didn't. Barristan Selmy, he's a great character. Fuck his death scene. I think that was one of the main falters in the show, aside from Season 8 and a few things in Season 7. But his death scene was one of the biggest blunders of any show I've seen. He was such a good character, so right for storytelling, and they just killed him off. Like, why? Why did they do that? Yeah, he was a great character. Such a good kind of mentor, and I don't really want to say father figure, but he certainly comes close to what a father figure for Dany. Such a good guy. Khal Drogo. Where the fuck do I put Khal Drogo? Yeah, I'll put him in a really good. He's definitely, I guess, the weakest of the season 1 crew. But that should just tell you how good season 1 is. Yeah, he was a character you couldn't really do much with. He was just a big brute who spoke another language and hated shirts. You couldn't really do much with him. But they still did. They made him, more, I don't want to say sympathetic, but they added a lot of growth to him with him really like defending his unborn child and stuff. And yeah, his death was stupid. But then again, it also made sense. So I don't know. I mean, Khal Drogo is a hard one to place. I think really good is a good spot for him. But I could also see somebody putting him pretty good. Hodor, I don't know, put him in pretty good. People lose their shit over Hodor. I never got the hype behind him. Sure, he says one word, and he has a really, really, really good death scene. That's about it. He's part of Bran's storyline, you know. I hate Bran. Lancel. Trash. I mean, look, season 1 and 2 Lancel, he doesn't do anything. They improved him a little bit in season 6 with him joining the Faith Militant, but even then, he wasn't really a character. Mr. Lewin. Really good. Part of me wants to put him in great, but I don't think he was significant enough to put him in great. But even then, once, Ned and Catelyn leave Winterfell, he is, the father figure that steps up and tries to take control of the castle of Winterfell. He's one of the few characters who are just good. Not good as in quality, I mean just a good person, And in a show where that's rare, he certainly stands out. Great character. Oh, okay, really good character, but Alistair Thorne. I'm gonna put him in great, actually. Many people might not agree with that, but for the whole Night's Watch storyline, you needed a villain besides, the Night King. And Alistair Thorne was it. And he was a villain who, really, depending on your views, wasn't even a villain at all. He had a reason for everything that he did. Some could say he had an, irrational hatred of Jon, but even when you learn about his past, you can see why he had that hatred. And even all of his, plans and stuff, and the choice that he makes, there's always a reason behind it. You can always understand those reasons. So I think the actor who played Alistair Thorne, I don't know his name, but he played it perfectly. It has made the Night's Watch storyline just that much more interesting. Osha. Osha's really good. Pretty good. Really good. I'll put really good, because she was the first wildling that you saw that you could actually see the wildlings were people. They had their own reasons for doing things, and they could be sympathetic characters. And she was the first one to really show you that. I don't think, she wasn't as significant as some of the other characters, but her writing was good enough to where I think it bumped her up to really good. So, yeah. Maester Aemon, put him really good right next to Jorah Mormont. These two really made the Night's Watch seem like a home and a place of actual like order and stability and stuff. And again, like Maester Luwin, one of the few just good characters, just good people. And I like characters like that. Catelyn. I hate Catelyn. However, she's very important to the plot. And there's a few scenes that actually make me care about her. Even though I hate her because she single-handedly started the War of the Five Kings and hates Jon for really no reason whatsoever. She's fine with Ned, the one who created the problem, but she hates Jon for some reason. And she's stupid. No, I hate on Catelyn too much. I know I do, but I don't know. She's pretty good, I guess. Alright, Talissa Stark. I guess same realm as Catelyn. She didn't have much to do, but I never at one point like hated her character or got tired of like her whenever she was on screen. So I think that's a good qualifier for pretty good, right? Brienne of Tarth. I'm gonna put her in really good because at times I really like her character, and then at other times I fucking hate her character. So yeah, she has one of the cringiest lines in the entire show when she kills Stannis. That part just, ugh, fuck that part. If you're a fan of Stannis, you know why that whole scene is dog shit. But aside from that, she has a few good key moments. She isn't a bad character. She's just annoying at times. Sir Davos. Oh, we got a pretty good lineup for the next few characters. Sir Davos, he's S tier. And in the characters that I mentioned who are just good people, Davos is, I think, the best among them. And he was one of the few characters that also wasn't ruined by season 8. He provides a different view than most of the other characters have. He's one of the only realists in the show. He doesn't care about traditions or, his family lineages, things that all these other characters care so much about, but ultimately doesn't mean anything. He's the practical guy. This is what we have, this is what we need to do, here's how we do it. And he has some of the best lines in the show. The actor, Liam Cunningham, is like Ian Glenn, he has one of the best voices in the show. So great character. He was interesting with Stannis, and then when they paired him up with Jon, just as interesting. He never faltered throughout the entire runtime of the show. Tywin. People say he's a villain. I don't think he's a villain. I just think he's one of the best characters in the entire show. He's how do I put this? He's what Game of Thrones is. He is the epitome of Game of Thrones. Yeah. I'm blanking on like what to say about Tywin, but the man just owns every scene he's in. And the fact that some people see him as a villain and some people don't, that just goes to prove how complex his character is. You may not always agree with his decisions, but you have to admit his decisions are usually always right. So yeah. And Stannis, look, I'll be the first to admit, book Stannis is so much better than show Stannis. I don't know what they did with him in season 5, but that even though book Stannis is so much better than show Stannis has still got to. That should just go to show how good of a character this guy is. I mean, I know he's not like anywhere near objectively the best character, but he's always been a personal favorite of mine. He has every piece of dialogue he has is just quotable and extremely well written. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a bigger fan of Stannis than probably he has a right being, but I don't care. Stannis is awesome. Marjorie. Again, I'd say probably S tier. She was. Her and Cersei had a really good dichotomy. She was like. Cersei was the female player playing the game for bad, I guess. She was the female player playing it for good. And she played it fucking perfectly, man. I mean, she was able to, actually rein in Joffrey, which few characters were able to do. And her writing was always really strong. And she's really hot. It's a factor. Ygritte. I'm going to say great. Really, the only thing she had going for her character was a relationship with Jon. And even though I would have liked, more from that character, the one thing she had was really, really good. So, I mean, even though I was wanting more from her character, what we got was still really good and compelling. So, I think she's a great character. She's really, really well written. Balon Greyjoy is actual trash. The man's an idiot. What can I say? Who tries to lead a rebellion against Robert Baratheon at the might of his power? An idiot. Roose Bolton. I'm only going to put him in grade, even though I kind of want to put him in God tier because I love the Boltons. But Roose is great. He was a lot better than he was in the books, in my opinion. A lot more, I guess, rational. And one of the guys who, he's a villain, but like a lot of the villains in the show, you can understand where he's coming from. He's just a man with ambitions. He has a goal, and he gets the goal. He becomes Warden in the North. I mean, even though we don't agree with it because, we as an audience are meant to root for the Starks, and, he portrays them. If you were on his side, he'd be an absolute hero. And plus, the actor who plays him is an incredible actor. Gilly is actual trash. I hate everything about her character and every scene that she's in. She's an idiot. Okay. I need a break for the next one. Jaime Lannister is the best character in the show. That's all I'm going to say. He is the best character in the show. He might only be my second favorite, but I still think he's the best character in the show. Both on the books and in the show. Okay. No character has as good as a story arc as Jaime. Keep season 8 out of it. he has so much conflict within himself that makes every scene he's in just that much more compelling. He's the most complex character, and he has so much growth. Podrick. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. He's a great character. Yeah. He's not really significant at all. He's usually just along for the ride most of the times. I like him though. He's cool. Yeah. Melisandre. Put her in really good. Again, she never really falters in the entire runtime. It's just she's kind of stagnant throughout. And that stagnicity isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it's not like her as a character is bad. It's just you want more from it. Somewhat similar to Ygritte. The character she has isn't bad. You want it to change or evolve, and it never really does. Yara. I'll put her in not good. She's not as bad as Balon, but I mean, yeah. A lot of these more minor characters, I don't have that much to say. Like Jack Nagar. Okay, I'm gonna go with the majority of his character, which is not good. Now, season 2 Jaqen is a good character. He doesn't have that big of a part, but the part he has is really good. It adds a lot of mystery, and he adds a new aspect to the show that we've never seen before. Season 5 and 6 Jaqen is no. No. Grey Worm. Now, if we were talking season 8, he'd be actual trash. Fuck. Okay. But we're not talking about season 8. We're talking about every other season, really. And every other season, he's pretty good. He... What do I say about Grey Worm? He was good, He had a new point of view, I guess, for Dany's storyline. And he had some subtle growth throughout it, so... Yeah. Alright, why am I blanking on this guy's name? He's a really good character. Fuck, what's his name? Why out of all the characters am I blanking on this guy's name? Beric Dondarrion. Fuck me. He's really good. He's not really even a character in season 1. But then season 3, when he comes back, he has just a new level of mystery to the show. And plus, he has one of the best voices in the show. I don't know what it is with this man's voice, but it's a good fucking voice. Missandei is not good. She doesn't have a character. She just follows Dany, and whatever traits Dany has gets passed on to her. She doesn't have an independent character. So, yeah. She had like one good scene. So yeah. Mance Rayder. He's really good. He's a character who, at one point he's a villain, another point he's a sympathetic character. And he's a character who, yes, he's a villain throughout, most of it. But you can really see where he's coming from, and that's what makes a good character, is being able to assume their point of view and actually understand it, and at some point agree with it. So, Mance Rayder, really good character. Tormund, I'm going to put in great, not quite God tier, because he became too much on the comic relief. Whereas before, he was usually always the comic relief, but he still had that air of, I can still kill you with my bare hands. But later on, as the seasons go on, he more and more just becomes the comic relief, and kind of like the bumbling idiot, which, is entertaining, but isn't good for his character. Still, though, he's a great character. Ramsay. Ramsay's got to. I go back and forth whether I think Cersei or Ramsay is the best one. I think objectively you have to say Cersei's probably the best one, because she has her hand in the most events and is significant throughout the entire show, where Ramsay, while still significant, has a smaller part to play. But personally, I just love every scene Ramsay's in. I mean, he's an absolute psychopath, and it's just so entertaining to watch. Yeah. So, I mentioned before how Joffrey wasn't my brand of villainy. My brand of villainy is Cersei and Ramsay. A villain who is either a more subtle villain, who works more like in the shadows, or the villain who just loves fucking being a villain, which is Ramsay and Cersei to a T. Now, Daenerys. I said before, I'm not the biggest fan of Daenerys, and I wasn't lying. Her character just, it's the type of character who is, I am owed this. This is my name, so therefore I deserve this, and that it never changes. It makes the whole experience not as compelling. I mean, she had a few key things with her wanting to free slaves for a while, and that was good. But she always had this goal of, I am a Targaryen, the throne belongs to me, which I just don't agree with. Maybe it's because I think she would be among the worst rulers that I hate her so much. But I don't know, whenever I would watch the show, and whenever it would cut back to Dany's storyline, internally I always just groaned a little bit, because I wasn't as interested in it as I was as the rest of the show. So, I mean, for that, I can't put her any higher than pretty good. Olenna, if I don't put her in God tier, I'd be scared. No, Olenna's just such a well-written character. I'm the only person to really go toe-to-toe with Tywin. Which is weird, because you don't see a lot of well-written grandmas in the show, or in any show. But she's the one, I guess. Thoros of Myr, he's pretty good. Don't have much to say about him. I mean, he's somewhat on the same plane as Beric. Beric honestly probably should just be pretty good. But he has that really good voice. That's, I guess, the only reason why Thoros isn't really good, is because his voice isn't as good as Beric. I know that's not at all a good criteria for making a good character, but I don't know, when a character has a voice such as Beric's, you just kind of shut up and listen. Corell. Yeah, he's pretty good. I have almost nothing to say about his character, because He's not that significant, but like a lot of these pretty good characters, the part they had, they played it well, and it was written well. Qyburn. Yeah, Qyburn, I guess, same thing. For the kind of a different reason, I thought they were going to do something, I guess, different than what they actually did with this character. You know, a maester who was expelled from the Citadel for doing questionable procedures. Could be really interesting, but they didn't really lean into that as much as I thought they would. And he just kind of becomes, you know, a lieutenant? I don't want to say a running man. He becomes, you know, a tool that other characters use. Not that he's a tool, but, you know, the characters use him as a tool. I don't know. Blackfish. Huh. Blackfish is really good. Yeah. I'm running out of things to say for these characters. Tommen is actual trash. Fuck Tommen. Seriously. Fuck Tommen. The fuck is your name? Daario Naharis. Fuck. Why do I forget the characters are actually pretty good? Yeah, he's a great character. The only reason he's not in God tier is because they just completely wrote him out of the show for some reason. There are a few characters that made Dany's storyline, you know, that much more watchable. Jorah, Barristan, and Daario Naharis. Without those three, I would literally skip past Dany's whole storyline. Yeah, he's very a lot like Bronn, which just makes him. He's just fucking entertaining to watch. I don't need a reason. He's just entertaining. Oberyn. Now, I don't know if he actually deserves this. But he's in God tier for me. Like, you know, a lot of the characters that are in this S tier, he doesn't have a bad scene. Whenever he's on screen, you shut up and listen. He's one of the most charismatic characters in the entire show. And he's played perfectly by Pedro Pascal. I don't know, like Stannis, I'm just a big fan of him. Though I agree, maybe he deserves to be only in great because he's not that really significant to the overall plot of the show. But you know what? I just don't care. I just don't care. He's, for me, one of my personal favorite characters. So, yeah. Ellaria Sand is actual trash. You want revenge that your lover was murdered in a fair trial by combat, so you kill the daughter of the son whose father was trying the other son who demanded the trial by combat. Do you see why this plan doesn't make sense? She doesn't make sense. Yeah. What's her name? The Lannister bitch. The Lannister daughter doesn't have a character. Actually, no, I'll put her in not good. Because she's not actual trash. But she doesn't have anything to do. You know? She dies. Like Rickon, she only exists to die. Viserys, he's really good. He's a really good season 1 villain. Kind of thought he'd be around longer. But, I mean, everyone hated his character, which is what the intention was. So yeah, he made season 1 really interesting for Daenerys. Yeah. Now I'm just gonna do all 3 of these because yeah, the Sand Snakes, they don't have characters either. The only character traits that they have are just the ones that they learn from their mother, and their mother is actual trash. So in turn, they're actual trash. The entire Dorne storyline. God's how they fucked that up in the show. I mean, in the books, Dorne is so much more important and actually interesting. But in the show, they just Dorne in the show. The High Sparrow. I'm gonna put him in great. Not a lot of people liked the Faith Militant storyline, but I thought it was great. He was a different villain than we had seen before, and I think Jonathan Pryce played that character perfectly. Everyone just hated him, but for a different reason than you hated a character before in this show. Someone who abused his power, pretty outright, but still played it as just, oh, I'm just a guy, He was a different villain than we had seen him in before. And that's why. Okay, Prince Trystane and Prince Doran, both an actual trash because Dorne is trash. Actually, I'm just gonna get some of these out. The actress, she doesn't have anything to do, but she's not terrible. This, I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea who this character is. I have no idea. So, yeah. And then this guy, I think he was the actor with this lady. These aren't characters. Okay. Euron Greyjoy. I'm going to put him in great. And a lot of people don't agree with that. But I don't care. He was bad in season 6. But in season 7 and 8, they made him funny. And I don't know, I was entertained by it. I can easily understand why people don't like him, but for me, I was entertained, and I can't keep lying to myself saying that I wasn't, because he was entertaining to me. He was sort of like Ramsay. He was bad, and he just loved it. He loved every second of it. And characters like that are just entertaining to watch. So, I don't care. Fight me. Randall Tarley. He's pretty good. Don't have much to say about this character. He's pretty good. That's not the Grand, the Maester. I don't know this fucking character's name. Not good. The Maester in season 7. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Characters that actually have characters. So, I'm going to start with Ned. Ned is God tier. And I said at the very start why I think Robert Baratheon is great, not God tier, is because of Ned. Both characters, I think, are equally as good in the seasons that they're in. But the difference is Ned's presence. You could still feel, even into seasons 7 and 8, characters are still referencing him. You can still feel the effect he had on the people that he interacted with. When Robert dies, he's just gone. His character isn't felt throughout, aside from the position he held. Whereas Ned, you still feel his presence later in the show. Now I'm going to go with Brother Sam first. I'm going to put him in great, actually. Even though he's among the most minor characters on this entire list. I want nothing more than more of this character. In the one episode he was in, not even just the episode, in the few scenes he was in, he was immediately an interesting, compelling character. I don't know why they didn't do more with him. I would have loved if they did. But yeah, I'm a bigger fan of this character than probably a lot of people are. But when a character leaves you just wanting more, that's a good character. Sort of. I don't know. Alright. Now the battle of Robb versus Jon. One of them's in great, one of them is in God tier. Jon's in great. I mean, he's a great character. I cannot deny that. He is a really interesting character in the first couple of seasons when he's still conflicting with himself about the Night's Watch versus the Wildlings, though I think in his heart he always knew he was going to be loyal to the Night's Watch. I still could feel that there was conflict within him. And then once he's Lord Commander, there's that whole thing. But then afterwards, once he goes back home to Winterfell, this is mainly Season 7. I said I wasn't going to count Season 8. But aside from a few key things, the thing about Jon is he's always going to do what's honorable. And wow, I like that there's a character like that. He's basically Ned. But that's all he does. You know, what's Jon going to do? Probably the honorable thing. There isn't as much complexity as I think Robb has. Robb knows what he needs to do. He never fucking does it. And I think Robb has a lot more lines than Jon that I just love hearing. He does have my favorite spoken line in the show, which is this. I guess I'll do this real quick. This line, still to this day, is my favorite line in the show.
Free your enemies. In war, you kill your enemies. Did your father not teach you that, boy? Oh. Leave him. Killed them as much as I. Mother to look at them. She killed them as much as I.
Sure.
My mother had nothing to do with this. This was your treason.
It's treason to free your enemies. In war, you kill your enemies. Did your father not teach you that, boy?
Look at them. Those boys didn't...
Vengeance.
Vengeance.
Now it's coming.
Those boys didn't kill your sons. I saw Harry and die on the battlefield, and Torrhen...
was strangled by the Kingslayer. They were his king.
They were boys! Look at them.
One more time.
Harry and die on the battlefield, and Torrhen...
was strangled by the Kingslayer. They were his king.
They were boys!
The line is just delivered so fucking good. So yeah, I've always been a Rob fan. I think he's a more interesting character than John. But both, I mean, both are great characters. I just think Rob has a little bit more to him. So that's my tier list. This has been over an hour long, and I'm really tired of talking. So I'm just gonna end this. So yeah, thanks for like watching or whatever. I'd say subscribe and like and all that shit, but nobody ever does that shit. So no, I don't care. Goodbye.